All right. Well, as most of you know, the topic today has to do with control. And I sometimes maintain that our whole culture is addicted to control. And what that really means is we don't like to feel discomfort. So we have various personality habits and communication ways of managing emotional discomfort. And also, if you know anything about me, I'm all about continuing to get more and more comfortable with discomfort, not necessarily, like self-punishing way, definitely not, but noticing what these control patterns, I'll be talking about control patterns, these automatic personality habits that you're not aware of, although maybe your friends are aware of them. And so today I'd like to help us get more aware, more self-aware about our various automatic habits so that we can notice them, pause, and see what's really going on. And basically, it boils down to seeing what you feel underneath these automatic habits. So we'll get into it. And the question that I posed as the topic for today is, what is something another person does that you wish you could control? So, it's got a slight bit of humor in that because I think most of us can admit that, yeah, we wish we could change this or that about another person, but we also know that control in and of itself, just trying to control in order to make our world, in order to make ourselves more comfortable, that's not a great strategy for our own personal development. Because if you think you should be able to control everything so that you're always comfortable, you're not going to grow. So, I'm into growth, I'm into development. That's what I'm selling here in this work that I call Getting Real. So, would you guys look with me at a list of a few things that I remember people saying they wish they could control about somebody else? And some of it's me, and some of it's my friends and my clients. So I'm going to do a screen share here just to kind of warm you up, and then I want to ask for people to put in the chat what are some things you wish you could control. So this will just get you started, and then write in the chat either one of these things or something of your own that there you can all see that. I also copied and pasted that in the chat before the meeting, and I'm not sure if it's still there, but let's just look at the screen for the moment here. Just glance down this list and see which ones kind of ring true for you, maybe for a particular person. The kind of relationships where this control stuff usually comes up is what I call the obligatory relationships in life. Those are the people that really matter to you. It could be your mate, your child, your parent, your boss, a coworker, a good friend. The relationships that you can't easily get out of, especially like parent, child, that type of thing. You're stuck with each other. So that's the kind that stimulate these kind of wishes to control. So take a look. And John, you guys have access to the chat there? I'm going to stop the share here, and then we can pay more attention to the chat. And I'll see if that's in the chat because I did copy it.
It's not, Susan.
It's not. All right. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. I'd rather see yours. It seems
You have to post it in the chat, like during the chat,
like
not
during
before.
the thing. Okay, I'll
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
No, I can actually easily do that. So I'll just do it now. I see it in my chat, but oh, I didn't click the little thing here. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I have to click the little send button. Or is it there now?
Give it a second.
I'll just put it in again. What the heck? Well, you guys know how to use the chat, and I'm seeing some things here. So let's look at what's already in here. You wish the other person was less controlling. Those on today's calls who aren't muted and creating distracting sounds. Well, thank you for that awareness. Complaining, that's a common one. I wish this person wouldn't complain. Tell me what he thinks and feels, my son. That kind of warms my heart when I read that one. Tell me, I want people in my life to be more efficient and not waste resources. So notice if you can relate to some of these. Willingness to talk things out and share thoughts and feelings openly, as long as it might take. Listen and be more present. That's a common one. Wish I could control the mood of my wife. Wish people understood the win-win concept. Treated with more respect. Stop drinking alcohol. Take better care of their health. Defensiveness. That's a really common one. And that's kind of one of the most common control patterns that people use. Lean into conflict and not withdraw. Well, what a great list. So what do we make of this? If that person were able to do that, if they did that for you or for themselves, what would that do for you? Like, I need you to do this so I can what? So I can feel something, or so I can like respect you, so I can not be frustrated. Just like reflect on that for a minute. Anybody willing to have a discussion with me about this for a minute? Just, this will be very brief. Marie, is that how you say your name? So Marie. Hi, Marie. Thanks for volunteering. So what was something you wish you could control about another person?
I would like to know that people lean into conflict and not withdraw.
All right. So I'm going to ask you the question. What would that do for you?
It would allow me to feel safe in the relationship, to be myself fully and not, and then this is where the thing kind of bites itself into the tail, and not control that I'm not too much for them, which would then initiate them pulling back.
Yeah. So you've already sort of answered my next question, which is, what are you trying to avoid? At least one of the things two things you mentioned trying to avoid. I mean, it was implied when you said, I'd like to feel safe. So I want to avoid feeling unsafe. And I want to avoid getting that impulse that now I've got to control myself because I might be too much.
Yeah.
So those are.
And I want to avoid like, oh, okay, I'm my full self on my own. That's not what I desire. I want to be my
desire. I want to be my full self
with others, not just on my own. So I want to avoid feeling alone, lonely.
Okay, so that's another thing is avoid feeling lonely. So each of you, if you can do these questions for yourself, there's there's a kind of discomfort that gets revealed that is hard for you to bear. Let's start with feeling alone, because a lot of people can relate to that. When this other person is behaving in that way, it's hard to feel their presence. And it is a lot of times, whatever that other person is doing, we could consider a control pattern. And I'll look at a list of control patterns that people do that are generally difficult for a partner or for others. But first, we're just looking at how can this question reveal some important stuff about myself, what I'm longing for, but also what hurts, and what perhaps I go through life kind of scanning for avoiding that kind of hurt, or perhaps seeing that kind of hurt, like how connected this other person is willing to be with me, how intimate. Now that's not everybody's concern, but that's really a foreground for a lot of us, especially the kind of people who follow my work. So we call that sensitivity. It's a kind of an emotional sensitivity that then results in people getting triggered by another person's behavior, by another person withdrawing from conflict. They don't hang in here with me. They give up too soon, that sort of thing. So now I'm alone with all of this stuff that I wanted to exchange with you. And that alone feeling is something to be inquired into. We can use, even this simple little thing like, what do I wish I could control? We can use that for self-healing and for clues to what parts of ourself, the tender parts, that need more loving attention. So when I replay, he moved away from conflict. And what did I feel? And do that with me now, okay? And probably a lot of us can do this on your own while we're doing it. What did
and I realize, if I may say,
speak to me.
I realize it's not just alone, it's the shift from there we were together and then it's lost.
Yeah. And if and that's a big one. I thought we were this, and then that happened. Or I was feeling so, like good and safe, and then that happened.
Yeah.
As we go through that, as I just say that, does that ring any bells from anywhere in your whole life story? Is there any similarity that if you tuned in, usually we want to take a little longer with this, like tune in to that, gee, I had it and now I don't have it anymore feeling. And we just feel into
if I go to the earliest, totally, yes.
Yeah. Do you get to an early?
My mother was like that, yeah.
Would you be willing to say something to bring us all into that?
Yeah, the core story of my mother is like, oh, there's a sense of connection, and then no, and then yeah.
Okay.
But I can find other, but this when I go to the earliest.
Well, that's probably, that, let's face it, all of these conditioned sensitivities, fears, desires, all of these things get installed in us. Well, the earlier they start getting installed, the more important they are to work with. And you're lucky that you have a bit of a memory there. But even if people don't, you start with the, oh, I had it and then lost it kind of thing. You just start with that and then tune into your body sensations, Any stories you have, like the story, I had it and then I lost it, or the story that could come up is what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with her, or what's wrong with life, or I'm not enough, or I'm not loved. Different stories can emerge for different people from just that one type of incident. And as we let that in, and we have to bring some emotion into it, and I can see that you're doing this now, bring some emotion into it and bring the witnessing self into it. And you are witnessing it if you're voluntarily remembering it. But like if you consciously say, okay, I'm feeling this voluntarily, I'm kind of curious, I'm inquiring what's going to come next. And sometimes people remember very detailed memories of specific things, and they can feel compassion for that younger version of yourself. And that's always the idea, is to actually bring some love to that person, that little person. If it is little, it doesn't have to be childhood, it could be later, but as if this tender part of you is a much loved child. That's the way I like to describe it. And a lot of people like to work with their triggers more cognitively. I don't think that goes deep enough for most of these triggers. When I say cognitively, they realize they have a story, like, oh, there's my I'm not good enough story. Well, what if that were not true? What's another story that I can make up about that person moving away from me? Oh, they've got a problem or something. If you just sort of substitute some one rational story for a slightly less rational story, I don't go for that personally. I think you really need, because all of this stuff happened to you with a lot of emotion, even though you might not have felt it. Because when we're kids, sometimes these feelings of, gee, my mother's close and then she moves away and what's going on? These feelings are so overwhelming that you don't let yourself feel. You know, you freeze. And there's been so, since the Me Too movement was just one thing that kind of made everybody more publicly aware of how it, you know, let's talk about, you know, women having sexual overtures, and this is usually older than a little kid, that they couldn't handle. And like, why couldn't you speak up and say, I don't want this? The why is because when something like that happens, it reminds me of being overpowered at some other stage in my life when I really was unable to speak up for myself. And I froze then, and I've never done the healing work that I need to do to see that I have other options. So that's what I think the Me Too movement is, one of the benefits of it. I didn't like a lot of the threats that, you know, the fear that came out of that, like the fear that men had, for example, and the you know, conflict that put out in the culture. But the good part of the Me Too movement was helping us understand trauma and freezing as a honestly normal reaction to that kind of thing. So, I mean, somebody's coming on to you sexually and you can say, I wish the person wouldn't do that. And to the extent that you're not able to find another creative response to that, that means you still need some healing around it. So let's go back to not such traumatic kinds of things, but just whatever's coming up for you guys now. Let me excuse Murray, is that, did I say your name?
Right.
Marai. Okay. Marai, anything you want to say as you've listened and gone through this? We'd like to hear it.
Yeah, so when I was able to feel, and it's a different thing to feel in our shared space than just on my own, obviously. And I went deeply in there. I I mean, the one back then really believed, oh, I am doing something, because the response was not just withdrawing, but withdrawing because there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And so out of that has come the pattern of, okay, how do I do it right so that this response
Yes. Yes.
doesn't come? But if that response is actually then a protection pattern of that person who are not owning their thing, but they're blaming, there's like this thing of being afraid of being blamed, not just of someone withdrawing, but
Yep.
them withdrawing
Right.
and making me wrong and it's my fault. And so seeking to navigate that is, but then also wanting to be myself fully. And so it's like being torn.
Beautiful. You were able, you were able to feel more nuances into it. And the more we take time with this and actually do it, and like you actually did it, even though I'm talking about something else, you're staying with your process of feeling and what's going to happen. Oh, and now I get the feeling, oh, I had must be something wrong with me interpretation of that. And most kids do make it about themselves. Frankly, I think it's because you feel so powerless, and what's the easiest explanation? And it's actually an explanation that at least maybe you think you might have some control over. The easiest explanation is, I must be bad and I have control over that. I can be good. I can be more good. And so you spend your whole life trying to control people moving away or blaming, based on that mistaken story that it was my fault and I should have done something different. So any of us who have that, take a moment and just feel compassion for that little one that had that story. Yes, right.
I love this detail of this fine-tuning on that is actually a way of feeling less helpless.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if only I did the right thing then.
That's right. That's right. And that's one of the main human control patterns, is to try to feel less helpless. Even tiny people kind of figure out how to feel less helpless. Well, I'll just make it about me. So basically, just be aware of that, folks. You were trying to, if you made up that story, you were trying to get control in a situation where you didn't have any.
And it seems to me that the way through then is to really feel the full helplessness and not the,
That's right.
It's like a censored version or somewhat.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's basically coming to terms with what actually happened to you. And that is part of the healing. Like, this really happened. However, I tried to make sense of what happened and I learned the wrong thing. This is a phrase I use a lot. We learn the wrong thing as children about what's causing things or how the world works, because we generalize. I mean, what else do we know? We generalize from our own little family experience. So I'll pause here for any, like, oh, thank you so much, Murray. That is so beautiful. And I just, let's take a moment and appreciate her for going out and showing us all, showing us all how to do this work. Because you did a beautiful demonstration without much guidance from me.
Thank you for the space to go.
Yeah. So any comments about your own, how this applies to you, like what your phrase was and what you learned from this? Anybody willing to share at that level first? Yes, go ahead, Scott.
I just wanted to say, since we're talking about control, that what comes up for me during all this is like, yes, Les, I love doing this for myself. I love doing it with people on this call and people that do this. But you know, my control thing is like, how do I get other people to do it?
A good one. I bet a lot of us could second that one, right?
Yeah.
Um, well, you can be a role model.
Yeah.
Oh, here's what I like to look at is what would be, instead of wishing in the moment that I wish somebody could, that I could control something, what would be a creative response to what they're giving me? So I was talking to some friends yesterday, and it's husband and wife. Okay, so the husband says, I wish you wouldn't ask why when we're doing a project and I give you instructions. I wish you wouldn't ask why all the time. Okay, so he gets a why. You know, that's what the universe is giving me, a why, when I don't want to take the time to explain. It's obvious why, you know, or whatever his self-talk is. What would be, can we think of what would be a creative response where he built on what he was getting rather than, well, he kind of got triggered. So when you react like that, you get a little triggered. You know, that's got to be forgivable. But when we process it later, we can go, if I weren't triggered and if I were just my relaxed, friendly self, because when you're triggered, you're not your relaxed, friendly self. That's how you know you're triggered. If you're present and calm and open, you're not triggered. So if he were present, and Scott, try this with me. You got any ideas about what this guy could say to his wife when she says why, and he, instead of saying, I wish you wouldn't say why all the time.
I mean,
So
it's kind of
I've got one, but
all right.
it's just
I
have you got
yeah.
one?
Well, no, the thing I wanted to say is like my first thought is to inquire if they're even open to like what's under that, or because that's, I feel like that's often the problem, is that the person's trying to avoid a conversation rather than to have one.
Okay, so one, and then I see some other hands up. So Michelle and Bill, I'll invite you in. I want to hear it. But that's one option, is to basically invite them to look at themselves. Is that kind of it? What do you actually need here? Something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I mean, if someone is saying like, why do you always ask why? It sounds like it sounds to me a bit like I'm interpreting it as like sounds like they don't really want to, you know, like, why don't you just take my answer and not talk about it? So, this is what I imagine maybe.
Yeah, that's what he was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you would find out kind of like why you're asking why, in a sense.
Well, yeah, but that's what I say. The hard part is they've kind of already announced they don't want to talk about it.
No,
And
they
now
haven't. No, I don't think when she said why, she wants more information.
she does,
Yeah.
but I'm saying he doesn't want to talk about it.
Oh, he doesn't want to talk about it. But now
Yeah.
he's in his creative, friendly self,
Oh, okay.
in a different mindset. Okay.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
So he could sincerely say, you know, like, is there a better way for me to ask that question? So I wouldn't get
Yeah.
by, you know, with humor. You know, I mean, I think that could work.
Yeah, I think some version of giving him the space to share what it feels like for him when he hears the why.
Yes. Giving a feeling, expressing a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my antidote to every situation is hearing you say that I feel.
Exactly.
That like covers bringing you back into present time with your partner. Remember that one if you haven't read my books. Hearing you say that, I feel.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Michelle and then Bill.
I was thinking that, instead of saying how I felt, another strategy would be to try, like Scott was just saying, trying to say something that might allow the other person to get more in touch with what's going on with him. Something like, it sounds like maybe you wish this were easier for us to understand. Is that it?
Mm.
Something like that.
Yeah, like stay with her, because see, once you're back in your friendly mode,
Mhm.
rather than resisting what is,
Yeah.
you're able to, just say it in a friendly way, and almost everything works better then.
Like almost like if you can not take it personally, and so that you're just trying to understand more what's going on with that person. Sometimes just doing that kind of thing allows them to, oh, wait a minute, that's not, they'll start thinking about it themselves anyway.
Yeah, and in a sense, what you're saying, Michelle, is you're slowing the conversation down, and you actually are giving more space to the other.
Yeah.
And you're able to do that. I mean, so we're not saying you should never take things personally or never get triggered or never get tight.
Yeah.
You're gonna, but
Yeah.
you reflect on it, the next day or an hour later, and you go, oh, I was feeling something that tightened me up so much that I couldn't see other options besides do it my way because I said so, or something like that, which would not be a creative response to the moment. Okay, good. Slowing it down then and asking. And Bill, what'd you have?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, I wanted to exclamation point on the places I don't tend to go very easily or quickly is I feel, rather than try to fix the situation. Because to me, that's more of a control thing, to try to change them, try to understand them, try to have them understand me. Just to share how I'm feeling is usually missing in my natural reactive way of being.
Thanks.
So
Thanks.
yeah.
So let's say if you're willing to stick with me on this a minute, Bill.
Okay.
So let's say somebody you think you're just doing a project and you think she's there to help, and she says, what, why do you want the hammer right now? What do you, what's your feeling response?
I could say, for one, I could pause if I'm really triggered.
Yeah.
Call for a pause and breathe.
Yeah.
Tune in. But if it's just a minor thing, I might say, wow, I notice I'm having feelings right now. When you ask me why, I feel some fear that I'm being criticized and judged.
That's beautiful, actually. That's what they came to after they processed it more together, was he was fearing that he was being like not good enough, not adequate. You're questioning my abilities, that type of thing, which is kind of like what you got to. Yeah. So when I say creative response to the moment, I don't even mean, now that I've heard your response, Bill, I don't even mean that you're not somewhat triggered. You might be triggered and know enough, like Bill said, to pause. And one thing that I think is often an overlooked response is, I need a moment. And if you can accept that, the other person can usually accept it. That's another way that, back to being like a role model for others, that I mentioned to Scott, people learn from each other. If you say, I need a moment, maybe that'll give the other person permission to do that sometime when they wouldn't ordinarily think about it. So let me hear what Dale's got. Hey, Dale.
Hey, Susan. Well, first of all, I definitely can relate to the being asked why. My wife will often do that with me. Why are you doing that? Or what are you doing right now? I'm like, my immediate just like get defensive. I feel like I'm being criticized. So I'm learning a lot. I love the antidote of I need a moment. And then also hearing you say that I feel. A nuance though I'm curious about is rather than I feel, I think it's less triggering for me and also my wife if I said a part of me feels, because really it is only a part of me.
Yeah.
And I know as soon as, well, my tendency is if Nicole says, my wife says I feel some way based on what she heard, I feel like it's my fault. And there's this big, all of her is triggered and it's like way bigger. And
Mhm.
even if I'm saying a part of me feels, it at some level separates me a little bit from it, like that it's this bigger thing. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I like that a lot. Part of me feels signals that you've got a bit of the witness going too. No, so it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that
Thank you.
fits for different ones of you, take his idea.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah. Okay, Annalisa. Hi.
Hi there. My name, it's pronounced Angelisa.
Angelisa. Oh, that's right. I saw that J there, but yeah. Oh, Angelisa.
Thank you. Where I went was a little different. When you said what's a creative response, I kind of went to what's going to be the biggest win-win here.
Mm.
And so where I went was he says something like, thank you for wanting to think about this with me and really understand what's going on.
Mhm.
Now, am I leapfrogging over potential feelings and conflict and going straight for like some kind of shared goal? I don't know. That's
It
where
could
I'm
be a strategy. I mean, it's your call. Is it a strategy to kind of get the other person off your back type of thing? Or do you feel genuine gratitude? Like, oh, that slows me down. I mean, you could feel like, oh, that slows me down and has me, well, both look at my tone of voice when I said that to you, because that came out later too, is that she was saying why, not because she wanted to know why, but she wanted to get more connected to him. You see how people are, we have to remember there's always these hidden layers underneath what you actually say and hear. So, Angelisa, I think it could be sincere or it could be a strategy, and you be the judge.
Well, if it's a strategy, could that not produce disarming and positive
It can
experience?
still be okay. It can still be okay. Sometimes you judge, you choose that being a little bit strategic is necessary. I mean, like even I think Dale said something where, there's something in the wife, in his case, I don't remember exactly what you said, Dale, but I read into it. There's something in the wife that you want to defuse her resistance a little bit, by saying a part of me. So that's in a way a strategy too. It's okay. It comes from the heart,
I can understand that sometimes people with many of us might have a big detector going on and feel, oh, they're trying to manage me right now,
That's
or
right.
something like that.
That's right. That's right. I've had a few boyfriends like that. but a few means something about me. More
Yeah,
than
I just
one.
wanted to explore if that was like some tendency on my part to go straight for the peacemaking rather than the
Yeah.
what's really going on here. But I think I have both instincts and they come in at different times.
Yeah, it's nice to have options, and the more present you are to that exact other person, the more you'll be attuned, and your choice will be attuned to them. Like, you know, this person really wants to know me intimately, so I don't want to just kind of throw the dog a bone. I want them to know me better versus soothing them, you know. So you always got choices,
Thank you.
and of course what you choose will depend on how safe you feel. Safer you feel, the more you'll come up with creative options, and you won't even know which one to pick, because wow, I've got so many good things I could do with this moment instead of resisting it. So here's a scenario I'd like you to that a lot of people get into. Let's think in terms of an older couple, although it could be at any age. One person is more sickly or disabled or, you know, kind of less healthy than the other person. In fact, okay, so we're at the older stage now, and the man has all kinds of problems moving, getting his body to move. Okay, he can move, but he's slow and doesn't like to go out of the house. And she wants to go to the gym, and he says, no, I need you to stay home with me. Okay, so this is a special kind of challenge. It's the self-other challenge, you know, self-care versus care for the other. Anybody ever been in that kind of situation? Doesn't have to be the one about more able and less able, but there's, you know, I want to help my girlfriend with her party, and I've got so much on my plate that I'm not taking good care of myself. You know, you've got other things, but let's take the one about he wants her to stay home, and she knows that she just needs to get out of there and get to the gym. What happens inside of you? I mean, she wishes he wouldn't, you know, clearly she wishes he wouldn't be asking this kind of thing. So if you put yourself in that situation, what do you do? Anybody want to try it? Darcy?
Hi.
Hi.
Me and him. Well, the first thing that came up for me was I started to feel claustrophobic in that situation, honestly. And then I wanted to take care, you know, of this, you know, of my partner, which is not this guy. It's usually I'm sitting on the couch and no. There's a lot of things going on, you know. Another impulse that I had was to negotiate, like, okay, I hear that you need me. What can I do for you so that you could feel good and safe and connected? And then, you know, we could meet your needs and my needs. It doesn't have to be one or the other kind of thing,
Mhm.
you know. And I might also have some feelings of guilt, you know, for just like both wanting to do some self-care and, you know, feeling guilty about it to go through in my own head.
Would you wind up going to the gym?
Probably I would want to figure out what he needs,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and find a time that could work for both of us, you know, so that I would try to find a way that both of our needs could get met, because he has a strong need and so do I.
Yeah.
And if I don't take care, you know, if I don't do my self-care, then that doesn't serve me or both of us.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Somebody agreed with you. Dale, I think, put agreement somewhere as
What
well.
would you do, Deggy?
I tell you, to go to the gym.
Get your ass out.
Okay. So you're the one, in this scenario, you're the one that wants to go to the gym and your partner doesn't. Anybody else want to comment on that or comment on what Darcy said? Do I see a hand there? Ah, Michelle, yes.
I love what Darcy just said, and I think, even sharing that with my partner, just saying all that, in an effort to help him understand how important it is for me, even though I'm also understanding how important it is for me to get out and to be able to be more there for him. So I love what she's saying of trying to find some sort of, what could we do together to make it easier for you while I also take care of myself. I just think that's
Yeah,
the answer.
basic, and Darcy used this word, negotiation. All negotiation is having a conversation about our differing needs. So many of us get triggered into, it's either I'll stay home with him or I'll hurt him and go. No, so just the word negotiation, I think, really says a lot. We're talking about win-win type of, we're not talking about Donald Trump negotiation here who uses fear tactics, which is in the books, that's another negotiation tactic, but we're not going there. So when my partner feels safe, they're a better partner. No, it's in our interest to help them feel safe, but not at my own expense if it's a real need of mine. So one of the things I like to promote here too is what do I actually feel about my partner's need? I mean, can I feel caring that he's going to feel hurt or alone, that kind of thing. I can feel that side, and I can also feel my own need, and I want him to have what he needs. I want me to have what I need. And I learn to hold the tension of the differences long enough for a creative response to emerge. And that holding differences is something that a lot of us try to run away from because that's a kind of discomfort. But can you see that when I hold both and I feel both at once, yeah, it's discomfort, but it makes you into a bigger person. It really does expand your world. I think holding differences is a very advanced communication practice. So it's not either your way or my way. It's I want us both, but just forget about the negotiation part. It's the inner preparation for creative negotiation, which is the actual caring for two things that seem contradictory and caring for them both and feeling them both at once. There's a whole lot of examples of that in the book, Getting Real. There's a chapter called Holding Differences. Okay, I want to show you the, well, let's see if there's any more comments on any of that. And then I'll show you a list of control patterns so you can look at some of your own. Any comments? Okay, here's the screen share. And this is just a partial list of control patterns. Just here, let's start there. Replying quickly. Do you do that? I won't go down all of them, but just how often we just quickly reply. What's that about? Instead of really taking in and feeling what we feel. What is that about? Anybody want to call it out? We can't see everybody now on the screen, but What would that be about if you want to, what would you be avoiding, let's say, or trying to manage? I would think, I don't want to appear slow or kind of stupid. So I give a quick reply. I want to appear confident, So some of these are controlling other people's impressions of you.
I just thought of a tennis match and like, okay, now the ball is right back in your corner. It's not on my side anymore.
Yeah. You're getting, it's like the hot potato, let's get rid of the hot potato. Now it's back to you. So that's a good one too. Yeah, there's probably a lot of them that, I wouldn't think of, but you guys would, How about the one, it's down a little ways, over explaining? Like somebody asks you, did you remember to get the milk? And instead of saying yes or no, let's say you didn't get it, but instead of saying no, you explain how much traffic there was and how somebody in front of you at the grocery line was complaining, just a bunch of stuff. You say a bunch of words. What would you be avoiding or trying to accomplish by over explaining? Does anybody do that?
No.
So, I mean, basically, what I think the person might be doing is kind of prolonging the inevitable in a sense of admitting, no, I didn't, and taking the consequences. Of course, you're trying to manage the other person's displeasure with you by helping them understand the pressures on you, and nothing wrong with that in a way. Just all of these things, when we see ourselves doing any of these automatic behaviors, and you often don't see it right when you're doing it, but you'll recognize, you'll go, oh, geez, I'm in that same pattern again. Oh, I used way too many words and I could have just said, no, I'm sorry. I'll go out now or whatever. So when you reflect afterwards, and this is a little exercise I like to give people. When you reflect a day later of, oh man, I was in a pattern, you can do this inner inquiry that I call the authenticity inventory, where you go, well, what was I trying to avoid by doing that? And if I had felt really safe, like she wasn't going to have a bad reaction, what would I have said instead? And even actually say it inside your own mind. Imagine saying, no, I forgot. And just putting a period on the end of the sentence. That might be good for some of us. Or I'm sorry, I forgot. What would that feel like? And that trains you. That's a way to retrain your communication channels to be a little more aware when you're doing it next time, and maybe more quickly say, wait, no, forget the excuses. No, I didn't. So it's a good exercise to help yourself get more back into the moment, when, even though you missed the moment that time, next time there'll be a shorter time lag between when you feel something and when you're able to reveal it. And we have 2 more minutes, and Arthur has a comment. Hi, Arthur.
Hey, I guess just a quick question. So scanning down that inventory, it seemed like there has to be quite a bit of nuance in interpreting some of those, because I could see some of them being motivated by a subconscious intent to control, and some of them not being so much about control, but just and I wish I had it up in front of me again to give you a good example. But I think there was one about like you know, going through all the details of some plan or something in order to avoid some kind of adverse outcome or something. I can't remember the exact framing, right? And I can totally see how that could be a manifestation of an intent to control. But I could also see that as just being a wise way of doing planning. And you can do that without this like desire to control, but in a more kind of collaborative approach. So it just seemed like
Yeah.
a lot of them kind of struck me as kind of having that duality, and that, you know, you just have to be very mindful, I guess, in how you interpret those. Anyway.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, Arthur, because there are many things on that list. And that list is from the book 5-Minute Relationship Repair. And when I give my workshops, I give a different list that's a little more up to date, because that book was 2015. But what I do say in the book, and in generally when I introduce this topic of the list of control patterns, it isn't a control pattern if you're doing it intentionally. It's a control pattern when you don't know you're doing it, and you're unaware of your motives, and you're trying to avoid discomfort. So smiling and nodding, one of the things on the list, and then I'll wrap up here. Smiling and nodding as you're listening to somebody can be, gee, I want them to feel heard so that they'll shut up and it'll be my turn. Or it can be sincere interest. So, you know, again, you be the judge. Okay. But a list like this will help you, you know, like a little checklist. What was my motive when I did that? Okay, folks. Well, thank you so much. And the key takeaway here is, when you communicate, are you communicating to relate, which really means just to share what's going on for you in the interest of transparency, knowing and being known, also really being curious about the other. So being aware of self, other, and the context. Relating. Controlling has to do with managing my anxiety about not being in control, or in some way managing how the other person responds to me. Sometimes controlling is okay. It's like you're a parent and you want your child to be safe, and you have to like keep them from doing certain things. So that's certainly a valid use of your control capacities. So it's all about awareness. And I'll leave you with my little phrase: you can only be as honest as you are self-aware. And so many of us are on automatic so often. It's forgivable, but let's admit it and keep doing the work. So thank you for joining me today. And I do these every Tuesday, first Tuesday of every month until further notice. And it's now announced in my Substack, and I usually announce it on Facebook too. Thanks for coming.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Susan.
Susan.
Thanks, Susan. Good to see you.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Susan.